So I thought I would just talk a wee bit about what happened yesterday and what the issues were that had arisen yesterday. So we went down there as a Guerrilla TV channel to cover the Tommy Robinson situation, debacle, I should call it. Having looked at his video of him actually speaking, I can't believe that the police charged him with breach of the peace. It seems absolutely preposterous that that would happen. Even if it wasn't, even if the police had made a mistake and it was contempt of court, I fail to see where the contempt of court was. So in April 2017, the BBC covered all of the trials. They actually put out photographs. They had said the people's names, or told the people's names. It's actually still on the internet. And a number of other media outlets had covered the actual trial of these perpetrators. And yeah, so basically the trial was over, and this was the verdicts coming in. So I don't know how you can prejudice a trial or have contempt of court after the fact that the trial had been completed. So you post-prejudice the trial, which seems absolutely laughable. And if that is the law, then I would suggest that needs to be changed. But let's assume that Tommy's presence, just his presence there, would prejudice the trial. Not the fact of the guilt or innocence of the actual people, but the fact is that his presence there would prejudice the trial, and that thereby him being in contempt of court. Although it has been said that it wasn't Tommy's previous situation that was causing him to be arrested, but there was other people on that day covering the verdict of that trial, and they were not arrested. So you would question whether or not that was actually being targeted, and a targeted arrest. And that's certainly what it looks like when you're actually looking at the whole scenario. And then a kangaroo court. I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life. I've never seen anybody get arrested and put in jail within 5 hours. I mean, that's South America, kangaroo puppet criminal procedures. I mean, that's what happened to me in Dubai. That's the same sort of kangaroo court that happened to me when I was in the Middle East. So no evidence, no required for jury. That's you guilty, on you go, son. That's you 13 months. Absolutely and unquestionably disgusting. And I'm sure there has been major breaches of the penal codes on the back of this. This completely looks like a politically motivated arrest and prosecution. Completely politically motivated. So what's going to happen? So we went down and went and spoke at, was meant to speak down at the day, down for Tommy Robinson as part of the Liberalists. And yeah, so we basically, we've set up the Liberalist Party. The Liberalists as a movement in Scotland. We're still waiting for it to become a party. Hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later. So we went down and we're hoping to speak down at Tommy's thing. So we're more than happy to help out and actually speak regarding this. Absolutely disgusting. I mean, it's disgusting part of criminal justice that's actually happened in the UK. And I met Tommy for the first time at the Count Dankula trial because I didn't know him before that. And he was up there supporting Count Dankula, who was a previous communist. So it's not we're not bothered about your political allegiances. We're bothered about the fact of what's correct in law and supporting your right of freedom of speech against basically the fascists, the authoritarians. So I was down there filming, recording the whole procedures down at the Tommy Robinson Day yesterday. And basically what had happened was that I don't know whether it was an overall blanket ban, but all the live feeds were down. So all the live feeds outside 10 Downing Street were down. I was only getting audio going through my YouTube channel. Nobody was able to access or actually see any of the procedures. All of it was down. I mean, if that is not Orwellian, if that is not draconian, I don't know what is. I mean, it's absolutely chilling. Chilling. So we couldn't actually get any live feeds up of the actual event. So unfortunately, I've left it up so to prove to you. That was 2 hours I was taping on that. When I was looking at the phone, it looked like it was taping fine. And when some of the guys commented, some of you guys commented, which I appreciate, that you weren't receiving any actual feeds. And when I spoke to some of my friends who are looking at other channels, they weren't getting any feed, audio, any visual feeds through their channels as well. So it wasn't just me. This was happening. A blanket ban, whether it was through the product, the actual provider, the actual telephone company, or whether it was an actual overall ban, or over the actual bans through the actual companies that we are actually streaming through. We don't know, but it has to be one of those. Even on when I was taping on my my phone, there was actual things that I taped onto my phone that were blanked. So I have no idea how that happened, but there was actual things on my phone that were actually blanked. So there was no ability or coverage through that as well. So, I mean, it is absolutely chilling that this is the state of Britain today. Theresa May is obviously coming out as some sort of autocrat, and this could only be coming from her. We're letting in ISIS terrorists, and we're keeping out journalists like Lawrence Sullivan, which is an unprecedented disgrace. The freedom of speech is being affected every day, and that is one of the reasons that I was down there supporting Tommy Robinson and his miscarriage of justice, which I'm sure is not the first time for him. So we go up. Everything was quite well natured. Raheem Kahim, I'll get that right next time, Raheem. They were starting to get a bit restless because obviously it was a heated day. Although people were in a good nature, it was well disciplined bunch, and they all kept their discipline quite well. Apart from a wee time, there was a wee heated moment, and Raheem managed to calm the whole situation down. Got on the microphone. The Fielders was excellent. There was a lot of excellent speakers there. It was very interesting, yeah. So it was a good-natured day. It was quite like the previous Freedom Day. Good-natured, no problems. Then we walk up the road to the end of Trafalgar Square, or towards Trafalgar Square, and all the people had gathered. It was quite good nature, sort of like a carnival type feeling about it, even though the people were upset with regards to what was happening to Tommy. And unbelievably, the police heavy-handedly, what I saw, and this is my observation, this is my direct observation. If there was other things that have come out later on, I might not have seen them. So it's important for me just to stress what I saw. They were all having a good time. The police sort of charged in. They then started to get heated. There was at that point, I didn't see any reason for the police to go in. That was me observing from a slight distance, but it was still an observable distance. Then the crowd was starting to get heated back. And then the whole situation caused it. It was almost, and I don't want to I don't want to get too specific on the police, because the police might have had a reason to do it, but it was almost as if the police had actually sort of enthused the situation, shall we say, and then obviously the people were getting animated. However, having said that, if we are going down the road of having an increasingly totalitarian fascist style government, then you're going to get pushback from the people. If the people are going to start living under a fascist sort of police state with somebody who's authoritarian, then you're obviously going to get pushback. And this is what we're actually seeing just now. And I think it's going to get worse. The longer Tommy Robinson spends illegally in jail, the next protest is the 14th of July. And the longer Tommy Robinson spends in jail, I think the worse it's going to get. Now, what has to happen is the people have to keep their discipline in the case of provocation, or the event of provocation, should I say. And they have to keep their discipline and make sure that they are not, they're following more of a Gandhi approach to this. I mean, obviously the people can see the moves within the establishment to have an increasingly authoritarian, disrespectful attitude towards them. Those with privilege against those working class people who are now being abused by the system, and they're not liking it. So there is obviously going to be a situation where there may be a problem with that in the future, but I can only advise people to keep it peaceful. That's only advice to them, to demonstrate and come out in bigger numbers. There was a massive crowd the other day. They're absolutely massive. And it's only by actually getting people out and on the streets is this situation going to alleviate itself. And I also, in a personal note, I'm not Mrs May's greatest fan. I've known Mrs May since I was in the Conservative Party's my early 20s, and I didn't think she was going to become Prime Minister. But I mean, it's credit to her political nuance that she has got to this stage. But I didn't think she would have been the right person to be a Prime Minister, which I think I'm starting to get proven right. That I don't mind if it's a women's job. I think that Margaret Thatcher did an exemplary job. So it's not about having a woman in a position of power. It's about having the right person in the position of power, not just a person in a position of power. And so this is a big problem just now. We've got Theresa May becoming increasingly autocratic, letting in ISIS terrorists, allowing Muslims. I mean, this could be the tip of the Islamic grooming gang iceberg. There could be many more people that have not. It looks like a lot of it's been covered up, and I think the reason behind Tommy Robinson being arrested was the state trying to silence. Trying to silence Tommy from actually covering it, because obviously the BBC, Sky, because I was there at the Count Dankula thing, the BBC, Sky and every other broadcaster was there for a guy teaching his dog how to do a Hitler salute to mock National Socialism. But the mass grooming of children is not even covered by the British media. So I mean, and then you've got the heavy-handed tactics of the police force, who looked like they were just steaming into people. If you can look at my previous recording of the actual event, you'll actually be able to see that was the aftermath. That was after the initial spark had happened by the police. So, I mean, it was obviously a very tense situation. But it just shows you how the crowd can actually turn, especially when there's such an injustice being done. So we're here to help. I'm here personally to help people who are suffering from injustice. And I certainly have been there at Count Dankula thing, and I was down there obviously to help Tommy as well. So it's not about a person's political views. I'm not bothered about that. We're here to promote freedom of speech and to promote freedom of speech and to promote or to prevent injustices. And that's including if one of these guys in the grooming gangs were illegally sent to jail. I'd be down there to actually speak and protest him as well. when the laws are unethical, that is violence against the people, correct? That's exactly right. That is a form of violence against people when the laws are unethical. That is completely correct. And that is something that we won't put up with. Now, the difficulty we've got from a political point of view is we have a two-party, because we've got a first past the post problem, we've got only two parties that can effectively win. And if you don't vote for Theresa May, you're going to get Jeremy Corbyn. So it's the devil in the deep blue sea between the two of them. So I was just at a meeting there and with the Scottish Libertarian Party. We're now hopefully going to be setting up the Liberalist Party, which is very much a centrist type of party, but not like the illiberal Liberals, Liberal Democrats that are in the UK just now. I mean, they're just, I don't know, they're a bit more like the American Liberals, completely illiberal, nothing liberal about them. And yeah, so basically we're here to change the game. We're not here to take part anymore. We're here to change the game. So what you need to do and stop doing is voting for the Lib Lab Con Party. You have to change your vote. You have to start to be evangelical and go out there and tell people to actually start to change their vote and stop voting for these parties. We have, because it's either or party, we have got no change in our political direction. We can't expand or we can't improve the way that things are happening. It's either the Labour Party or the Conservatives, and we need to get fresh talent into our political class because there is extremely lacking. But I think this is Theresa May's poll tax. This is what I think. I think it's absolutely disgusting that she's imprisoning people and the buck stops with her. The fact is that she must have been involved in getting Lawrence Sullivan under the terrorist laws, while at the same time she's letting in people who are actual real terrorists. And it's absolutely disgusting. But we already know why. I think I've already covered it in a previous video. We've already covered the fact that the British government has already signed up to this process, the Barcelona process. The judge was prejudiced when he put a gagging order on Tommy's case. Yeah, well, there was already a gagging order on the case. There couldn't have been a gagging order when the BBC was reporting on it. And I thought when a case had finished, I'm talking about the grooming case before Tommy's case. The grooming case, there couldn't have been a gagging on it before because the BBC was reporting on it. There wasn't, if there was a gagging order during it, so after the BBC have reported it, then they put a gagging order on it. Then somebody else was actually, I know, I understand it was Tommy's case, I understand, I'm going to talk on that in a minute. There was a gagging order, so the BBC didn't have a gagging order, was able to report on it prior to the actual case. Told all the people, got the names, got the photographs of them, and put out to the public. Then there must have been a gagging order put on it during the case. That's the only way that Tommy could have been arrested, if he was actually a gagging order during the actual trial. And then, but this was him reporting in the verdict. So when I was at Count Dankula, the BBC were there, everybody was there to report on a dog doing a Zeke Heil in the actual outside the courtroom. This guy was asking them questions, but yet not one major media outlet was there outside that courtroom waiting on the verdicts. So unless that, whenever they put that gagging order on the grooming case, then they obviously didn't want any more reporting because it's obviously quite shocking, and I think that's only, as I said, the tip of the iceberg. The grooming case, then they put the gag on Tommy Robinson's case, and to prevent the actual gag happening on his case as well, so they wouldn't actually prevent, because then again you would have to talk about the underlying case to actually speak about his case. So again, it would cause publicity because they don't want it. The politicians don't want anything untoward being said about Islam which is, as I said, a child rapist death cult. That's what Islam is. It's theocratically fascist, which would probably suit Mrs May just now with her autocratic style of governance, where she's becoming more and more like a wee Adolf, a female Adolf, the Empress Sith in the Star Wars trilogy. They should have got Mrs May's face instead of actually the evil emperors, because she's becoming increasingly autocratic, she's becoming increasingly authoritarian, and obviously her way is the right way, without even actually taking into consideration any of the people's wishes or feelings. She obviously knows best. So she's already signed up to the Barcelona process. 1985, the British government had already signed up to the Barcelona process. That was reiterated again with the Treaty of the Union 2010. And really, the people that are coming in as fake refugees from North Africa had already been signed up in 1995. They were already being allowed freedom of movement. And now that the African Union is in its embryonic stages as well, you'll get freedom of movement throughout Africa. So what you're going to see is freedom of movement right from Southern Africa, right throughout Africa, and being able to come into Europe. Now, this is obviously changing with Five Star and the other mob in Italy. This is obviously changing. There's obviously starting to get a kickback. The Poles are kicking back. The Hungarians are kicking back. Merkel in there talking to Trump was absolutely hilarious, as if she's got a leg to stand on. I mean, she's just absolutely worn out now. She has become a comedy, and we've now got the ADF hopefully about to depose her in her own constituencies now. I hope the ADF become a good, strong political, with good policies, a proper political party to actually get her and the Social Democrats out. But I mean, the choice of May and Corbyn, I mean, Corbyn is a disaster waiting to happen. If Corbyn ever get in, we would end up like Venezuela. We would become the sick man of Europe again. Corbyn's policies are atrocious. I mean, to be standing there praising Venezuela where they're shooting them on the streets, at least that's not happened in the UK yet. At least they're not shooting them on the streets, although there was a lot of armed police officers floating about. But yeah, we're not shooting people on the streets as of yet, but it depends how the things go. And it was interesting, obviously, part of police tactics is actually running away and letting the mob actually chase you. That's quite a clever, all based on the Roman legions tactics. I think the police have actually basically based their strategy on. Anyway, so I just wanted to cover these sort of things. The fact was media blackout over, so no live streaming from the event, just to affect it slightly. From multiple sources, there was a problem actually live streaming. On my phone, videos blanked out, all specific things, even though it looked like it was recording on the phone. All problems caused yesterday were, I think, caused with a view to they did not want any reporting on this, because they know that this is going to get bigger. And on the 14th of July, we'll be back down there, actually supporting Tommy, and actually covering the situation that's actually happening as it unravels. So there was the UK, I was speaking to Jared Baton, who seems very competent. He seems like a really good man, and he was fully supporting, and he said if anything happened to Tommy, they've got the UKIP peer in there, and he's going to launch homicide prosecutions against the Home Secretary. I think it was the Home Secretary. I'm not quite sure, but certainly I think it's the Home Secretary that has the responsibility for prisons. So I mean, that's very interesting, and I think that would be a disaster for any political party if anything happened to Tommy Robinson. So that's something that will not be countenanced. But yes, it's I'm sure he's not enjoying it in there. It's never good to be in the jail. And I'm sure that we're going to get more protests now. I think the protests are going to get bigger. I think we're all now understanding that this is completely unacceptable. But we have to protest peacefully. If we don't have our self-discipline and don't protest peacefully, that we won't be successful in what we do. Home Secretary says Islamophobia is rife in the government. There's no such thing as Islamophobia. The fact that the Quran repeatedly tells people to kill, it says in the Hadith to kill homosexuals. It repeatedly tells Muslims to kill non-believers, as they do at a state level. I guess he wants more Muslims in government. Well, I mean, obviously, it looks like it's a deliberate policy of ethnic cleansing, but in the government and more of people with this intolerant attitude. This has been done. This could not be done without the support of our politicians. So it's not. I don't even blame Muslims. It's not. I don't have a blaming of Muslims for this actually happening. The blame is squarely with our politicians. This would not be happening without the consent of our political class, and it's you voting for them that allows this to happen. If you don't vote for them and change your vote to another political party, which will be coming up very soon, then they will not have the power to actually impose more Muslims or whatever it is they want to do, the ethnic cleansing through mass immigration that they seem to be doing. So yeah, so we're against that policy. It's madness. There is no such thing as there's no such thing as well. So you've got to understand that Islam is a theocratically fascist ideology. Islam has a system of governance in the Quran which is basically theocratic fascism. The Bible doesn't have a system of governance in the Bible laid out for it. So that's why we in the Christian countries they've evolved. But Islam, that's why Saudi Arabia is a totalitarian system. Dubai, UAE is, well, it's got multiple leaders, but they're all totalitarian within their own remit. Qatar, all of the Middle East countries. You've even got, if you go to Egypt, it's totalitarian. All the Muslims know that in the Quran, if they're following the Quran, that you have a Khalifa and basically a ruler. And it's a totalitarian regime. It's not democratic. It's not requiring of consent from anybody else. Totalitarian, anti-women, completely sexist. Doesn't want, wouldn't have. You don't get female rulers in the Middle East, and they're all get the hijabs on and having to have permission from their husbands to actually get out. So I've stayed in the Middle East. I know exactly what's going on. I was held for 2 years, allowed to starve on the streets for 2 years after being attacked by a Pakistani Muslim taxi driver. But I don't think all Pakistanis or Muslims are bad people. In fact, quite the opposite. Many of my friends were Muslim and I really like them. But when I went to jail, I was held for 2 years, allowed to starve on the streets, wasn't legally allowed to work or leave the country for 2 years. And when I left, I was, my dad died, I couldn't come home for my dad's funeral. So, I mean, there was a number of things that had actually happened, but we've already been signed up to a process, the Barcelona process, by our political elite and the Union of the Mediterranean should research all of this. And this is why the Muslims are coming in, and this is why they're getting unrestricted access. And that's why in the Quran, obviously, Muhammad was he raped a woman's wife at Medina after he chopped off the 200 Jewish guys' heads. He married a 6-year-old, he consummated it at 9. And then if you're taking the literal, so they say fundamental, but they're not fundamentals, they're literalists. They actually take the literal meaning of what's in the Quran and actually implement it in their life. And unfortunately, these girls up to 11 who were groomed and trafficked were really the consequence of what the teachings in the Quran were. So we only have to look at the failure by our government to protect their own citizens because of their globalist agenda. And this is the problem. So I'm going to leave it there. I think I've said enough. But It's only the start. We're only going to get bigger. We're going to bring it right out. What they'll do as well is that we actually get no platformed. We actually get no. We need to get we get no platformed. Yeah, people do need to speak out. You're quite right. We get no platform because the globalists, like the Lib Lab Con Party, who's effectively one party masquerading as three. So like in Newsnight, the BBC will no platform liberalists or libertarians or anybody else that pretty much knows the truth about what's going on. And then so there won't be any challenges, they'll stack out the audience. And really the BBC needs privatised, or certainly we need to scrap the actual fee that we're forced to pay by the state. So we're really looking at the privatisation of the BBC. But I'll do a full talk on privatisation of the BBC very soon, and the fact that could end the austerity. So that would be great. So listen, I hope I've cleared it up. But I wouldn't say the police were completely to blame the other day there, but it looked like it was antagonised by the police, and there was certainly enough riot squad to actually prevent an army, which was pretty much what was actually happening. That it's getting worse and worse, and more people are going to speak out on it. Okay, yellow.